Welcome back to the broadcast. This is Inside Politics. Now, Tuesday's ruling by the High Court declaring the position of Chief Administrative Secretary and 10 Cabinet Secretaries illegal was long overdue, according to experts. Dr. Ekuru Aukot, the man who directed the committee of experts that came up with the constitution, argues that the president broke the law and cost Kenyans millions in taxpayers' money. But what options does the president now have following that ruling? Let's get more from Rita Tinina.
So help me God.
59 days after Uhuru Kenyatta was sworn in for a second term, he made an executive decision.
I have decided to establish a new position in government, the position of Chief Administrative Secretary.
Over 3 years later, the High Court has declared the position unconstitutional due to lack of public participation. Unlike the position of Cabinet Secretary, which is provided for in the Constitution with a limit of not fewer than 14 and not more than 22 CSs.
I, Esther Chepkemboi Koemet,
and the office of the Principal Secretary provided for in Article 155 of the Constitution, the position of CAS is not provided for in the Constitution.
So for you to create any other structure outside that, then you have to have caused an amendment to the Constitution to accommodate this new structure of the executive, because this is an expanded executive. And for you to expand the executive, you need people's participation, for example, to say, do we need an expanded executive or not? Now, if it is expanded executive, like just the structure of devolution, for example, you have to go to the people in a referendum.
The CASs include former Nairobi County Assembly Speaker Beatrice Elachi, former Nairobi County Woman Representative Rachel Shebesh, former MP Gideon Mungaro, former MP and Machakos County gubernatorial aspirant Wavinya Ndeti, and former Inspector General of Police Joseph Boyne.
Specific articles also he has flouted. For example, Article 10 on national principles governance. You know, it requires things to do with accountability, transparency, public participation, equity, fairness, and all those things. So you cannot surpass, because that's the principles under which you're actually governing the country.
The creation of the position, Ekuru Aukot argues, has cost taxpayers millions of shillings.
We even demonstrated in the Punguza Mizigo Bill 2019. We really need to reduce the burden on Kenyans. And adding these bad new positions and all these unnecessary referendum commissions, whatever, is another burden on Kenyans, because we definitely need money to put into other things.
In the ruling, High Court Judge Anthony Mrima also directed the vetting of 10 cabinet secretaries who served in Uhuru Kenyatta's first term, who were reappointed but were not vetted to serve in the president's second term. They include Fred Matiang'i, James Macharia, Rachel Omamo, Najib Balala, and Amina Mohammed.
This also calls for failure in the so-called representatives of the people, because they ought to have called the president to account, because it is the responsibility of parliament to actually vet and approve certain names to serve as cabinet secretaries and even permanent secretaries. So that never happened, and I think they gave the president, they created a culture where the president can act with impunity against the Constitution, against the people of Kenya.
The court has given the Attorney General 30 days to give a report on the CSs and CASs, but suspended the judgment until the COVID-19 pandemic is contained. When that will be remains unknown.
You cannot use the executive authority to expand the executive outside the constitutional principle. So again, it's really a useless directive if you ask me. It is of no consequence. So maybe what the president just needs to do is to abandon this whole thing.
Rita Tinina, KTN News.
All right, fresh headache for the president. We're joined in studio by Roslyn Albala. Roslyn, welcome to the show. Okay. Let me come right to you. Talk to us about this ruling by Judge Mrima and what it means now for the head of states. The CAS illegal, CAS is not vetted before, those who were in office before 2017 and not vetted afresh, also illegal. What now?
Thank you, Ben. The ruling has far-reaching implications because remember, just this year the president added additional number of CASs, And then the ruling came at a time they're also arguing that, remember, when the president went to seek a fresh mandate, he was given a fresh mandate when he was re-elected as a president. So that means that the cabinet that he came in with from 2013 to 2017 had ceased also holding office. So by virtue of extending their term and reappointing them to continue, it means they're in office illegally. So that means that all the cabinet secretaries who were never vetted by parliament again are all in office illegally. But again, the judge, because of the COVID-19 implications, put a caveat and said he was giving the government 30 days to comply. But that went ahead to the extent that he also said the Attorney General should furnish the court with the representation of the cabinet to ensure that it represents regional balance and also gender balance. Yeah. So again, this is another headache for the president. But the bigger headache is the cabinet chief administrative secretaries, because I think they are the majority. And if you followed the proceedings in the House, I think 2019 and 2020, there have been a push and pull in Parliament where even the Speaker was supposed to pronounce himself on the same after it became, that is the Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muturi, after it became apparent that the cabinet secretaries were snubbing parliamentary committee sittings and sending the chief administrative secretary to represent them. But now the question was, do their response, are they binding? Can they be followed? Do they speak as the authority of that institution? And they're also having issues responding to subsequent questions, because most of the time they were coming with written statements and a follow-up question. They were not able to substantiate some of the questions. Right. So there were some of the chief administrative secretaries who were chased away, others, and that is when now that issue came. And it was, that statement was sought by Kimilili MP Didmas Baraza, who had asked the Speaker to pronounce himself, because as per the law, there is nowhere where we have the position of chief administrative secretaries. So I think the question is, these guys have been in office, how much have they been paid between this time, and will the government be able to recover this money from them in the event that they will be sent home?
All right. Javas, what should happen here? A lot of opposers of this move by the president 3 years ago were saying that this position is illegal, it's unconstitutional from the word go. They were saying that it is just a way of the president rewarding his political cronies, people who lose in elections but are politically correct. Were they right, those people?
Ben, when you look at the exordium of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, provides that we, the people, aspire for a government based on principles of human rights, social justice, equality, equity, and the rule of law. The rule of law. When you look at Article 10, Sub-Article 2 of the Constitution, provides that the key governance principles in Kenya today, among them includes the rule of law, public participation, equity, equality, etc. To what extent has the demonstration of the leadership, especially the executive, bound itself to the aspect of the principle of the rule of law? I affirmatively answer to your question that yes, they were right. It worries me, for instance, that we have not seen during the period since the first appointment or declaration by the president upon the advice of the Public Service Commission that we have such expansion of the executive by appointment of the CASs, that actually there was a violation of the Constitution and putting at issue the rule of law itself. When you consider the import of petitions 33 and 42 of 2018 as consolidated, ruled upon by Justice Mrima, and looking also at the substance of Article 129, when you look at Article 132 of the Constitution, then we bring ourselves to the realization that we must not make a delicacy of violating the Constitution. The mandate of the president, the executive authority of the president, should actually not be stretched always beyond its elastic limit. And it must also then concern us that if at all the court has opined on authority that these positions are actually contrary to provisions of the law, then also guided that the government, of course, considering the matters COVID, should regularize these positions and going by the provision of the opinion of the court.
What do you mean regularize?
You see, it needs to make right. In fact, even when you look at that judgment itself, it provides that except, when you look at it, when you interpret it thoroughly, that except for matters COVID, the court would have ruled that actually, given how they are contrary to the Constitution itself, that these persons should vacate office.
Okay.
And it says that just because of COVID situation, it is not proper to disrupt functions and operation of government.
Okay.
That is the provision of that judgment,
Okay.
which therefore means that we would have expected a pronouncement on the part of the Attorney General that given the declaration of the court, which actually is its jurisdiction pursuant to Article 165 of the Constitution, to what extent then should the people appreciate that the Attorney General gives valid and proper advice to the President and to the government?
All right. What's your take on this position of CAS and why we keep seeing such decisions by the executive that keep on, being hit out by the judiciary?
Well, it seems to me that both the National Assembly and Senate have failed in their principal responsibilities of offering oversight. Because when the names initially were presented of the cabinet secretaries, they did not take the opportunity to reject all those names of the cabinet secretaries who had served in the president's first term. So in my view, that's where one of the, a portion of the...
There was no vetting during the second... Was there, Rosalind? There was no vetting...
Not submitted.
No, but other names were submitted. Yes. So during that time, that's when they should have pronounced themselves in black and white that there is a violation of the Constitution. They did not do that. Then secondly, the people who advised the presidency or the office of the president, where they... Because you do not need to be a lawyer to read those provisions and understand them. Even for me as a layman, when you go through the provisions of the appointments, you only subject them to logic to realize that if you as a cabinet secretary have been appointed to serve with the president for the first time, your term expires when the president begins his second term. So that is a plain understanding. It's black and white. But you see, that's not the first time they've acted out of the trajectory. During the vetting of the judges, the Chief Justice, we are told that the president is alive to the fact that he's supposed to appoint 41 judges. He's not done that. So for me, the buck stops with the people who advise the president, both at the State House and Office of the President, and the National Assembly and the Senate. Because this 2010 Constitution has got checks and balances to ensure that everybody dances to their tune. And then on the position of the CAS, it's indicated when you go through the Justice Murima ruling and even a plain understanding of those appointments, those were merely political appointments supposed to reward what we refer in our community as those Joluedos and Kanda Moko. Because there was even a substantive issue. There are these cabinet chief administrative secretaries. Who do they report to? Do they report to the PS? No. They report to the cabinet secretary. So, can they actually go to the office of the principal secretary and have a conversation? Most likely, no. So they're just there for political purposes. And when you talk about public participation, you've got a serious wage bill in Kenya. So we begin to ask ourselves, what is the contribution of the chief administrative secretaries in Kenya? How do they serve our public interest? How do they serve our national interest? What really are they contributing in Kenya? And if you reverse the question, you say, if you pull the cabinet secretaries from office, you'll feel an impact. If you pull the principal secretaries, you'll feel an impact. But is there any impact if you pull the chief administrative secretaries? For instance, if all of them, I don't know how many there are because, you can't even remember the name. 29. Yeah. If you take the 29 of them for a vacation in Jamaica, would the government stop working? What is their contribution? And Murima indicated in black and white that there was no public participation, that there was no advert in the newspapers for Kenyans to be invited to express their interest and get that appointment. So in my view, the president must be reminded that when he took the sword, when he was being sworn into office, he said that he was going to run Kenya with regards to the rule of law and order.
Yes, Jarvis.
Just an additional thing. You see, the jurisprudential import of Justice Murima's ruling is that the Public Service Commission had in its advisory to the president to create these positions. And actually, the president also had in law by creating those positions outside the provisions of Article 131 and 132 of the Constitution. Now look, if at all the Public Service Commission advised that these positions should be created, and yet these positions are superior to the position of the principal secretary, who is the highest office, which is the highest office within the public service, and this CS position is within the executive, then when you look at the import and value of this judgment, it points to the fact that we have entertained so much this aspect of just appreciating advisory opinion from certain quarters, and we do not actually ask to what extent they meet the position of the law. JLAC itself, for example, did we have the Legal Affairs Committee of Parliament generate a report advising or indicating that actually it is improper for the president to appoint persons to these offices as he did?
All right. I was declaring my points, and Jarvis has indicated it, but not in the entirety, because Justice Murima ruling indicated that the highest office is not actually the PS, it's the head of the public service. It's in black and white in that ruling. And then for the first time you see the government acting on Gear 5, because the same ruling indicates that the letter from the office of the president was delivered on 23rd, and they got the response on 24th. That's a question that many Kenyans will be asking themselves: how come for the position of CAS there is super efficiency, but for the judges we are doing a reverse gear?
All right. Let's get the views of Mark Bichach in this. Mark, everything about this position of CAS seems to be questionable. Now the High Court has addressed that issue. Who advises the executive in such issues? Or don't you agree with that ruling yourself?
Well, first and foremost, the part of the ruling that for me goes without question is the ruling where the CSs who served a first term need to be revetted. I think that is a common sense ruling. Forget about even the intricacies of the law. It is a very nice opportunity for the CS to give account of his track record before he continues on the job. It forms almost a valuation opportunity. What I find difficulty in understanding is the issue of the CASs. And the reason why I have issue with this is because when I read Article 132, Part 4A, and it says, the president may perform any other executive function provided for in this constitution on his or in the national legislation, and except as otherwise provided for in this constitution, may establish an office in the public service in accordance with the recommendation of the Public Service Commission. Now, when you read that and you apply it, you realize that the president may have seen a need to create an office within the public service to manage the ministries more efficiently. I will tell you for free that our PSs and our CSs are straddled with a lot of work. Whether the CAS position is important or not, and this must poses an important question, would the country go to a standstill if CASs were not there? Is Ababu Namwamba relevant in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or indeed is a former panelist and good friend of ours, one my goodness, his name escapes me, but he was appointed recently. Is he doing a good job in the ministry, Osiani David? Is he doing a good job in Ministry of Trade and Industrialization? That is number one. Number three is we need to ask ourselves the question, if a head of state is given a mandate to deliver to the Kenyan people, is he not able to create positions by dint of being the head of the executive to ensure he delivers for the people? This is the key question we have to ask ourselves. On the issue of public
that key question, Mark Bichachi, that key question of whether they are relevant is secondary to the question of the fact that the courts are saying this position is unconstitutional. Doesn't that matter to you?
No, it does, because, and then where I started, and I read the Constitution when I started, Article 132 does give the president permission to create offices within the public service with the recommendation of the Public Service Commission. So this is not a power I am creating.
The High Court says, Justice Anthony Mrima is saying that these positions were created unconstitutionally. The process, due process was not followed. Let me interrupt you a bit. I'll come back to you and come back to the panelists in studio with me. Rosalind.
Yes.
What is your take on what Mark is saying?
I don't agree with Mark because you see he has read that Constitution 132, Sabbatical 4, and he's saying unless not provided for in this law. So in terms of cabinet, it is explicitly provided for in law that the cabinet shall compose of the cabinet secretaries, the president, and the deputy president. So it is express. You don't need to fish around it in the Constitution. So if the president was given the maximum number of cabinet secretaries, he's not allowed to go out and fish for other positions that are not provided for in law. And what we need to look at is that parliamentary subsidiary laws are not superior to the supreme law. So in this case, we have a constitution that is providing this. So where did the president come up with the position of chief administrative secretaries? Two, if you look at the ruling by Justice Mrima, he's talking about was SRC consulted? Because here is a place where we're also talking about the wage bill that we cannot sustain. So if you're talking about the wage bill, did we consider this before creating additional positions for state officers? The war that Parliament has been having with state officers is that as an MP, I go to the ballot, I win. My loser, the person I've defeated, comes into government as a chief administrative secretary, who now turns out to be my boss and enjoys all the trappings of power, all the benefits. So does it not render the elective positions useless?
All right.
Because that's the position we are.
In 2017, the president's mandate expired, which mandate he was given from 2013. And he sought fresh mandate from the people by going to the ballot. Now, when he took the reins of power a second time, the persons that are supposed to help him deliver on the fresh mandate are supposed to be subjected to the vetting of Parliament, of the Parliamentary Committee.
Yes.
And here then, the fact that these persons who helped the president to deliver on his executive mandate were not subjected to that vetting. Right. The court has found that position at
Yes. Mark Bichachi, let me give you one minute to finalize your thoughts and also put in perspective what they've said. And as you do that, you know, the term of the president ends with the term of cabinet. This means the following CSs: Interiors, Fred Matiang'i; Transports, James Macharia; Joe Musheri of ICT; Eugene Omala, CS for Devolution; Charles Kater, Energy CS; Foreign Affairs CS, Rachel Omamo; Adan Mohammed of the East Africa Community; Cecily Kariuki of Water and Tourism's Najib Balal, as well as Amina Mohammed, are in office illegally. Give us your final thoughts.
Ben, I agree that they do need to be revetted. That is without question. That is a plain reading of the Constitution. Where we differ with the members of this panel, and where I think the Attorney General should appeal, is CISs do not sit in cabinet. Cabinet is the president and ministers. Now, the fact is that the law, plain reading of the law, says that the president has opportunity to create offices with the recommendation of the Public Service Commission. Why do we want to ignore that? Also, let us ask ourselves if the president has a mandate to deliver. And I'm not just defending here President Uhuru Kenyatta. We'll have a president after 2022. If the cabinet secretaries and the permanent secretaries are overwhelmed in their duties, what should the president do? Let us not just take this view that this ruling is without appeal. And I am sure it will be appealed presently, and we will sit back here and talk about the appeal and how it has turned around this whole matter. Because presidents across the world, including the United States and even the Republic of Uganda, have the right to create positions within the executive where they feel there is a need to fill a gap in the public service. This goes without saying. Come on, the president can write a letter and create an entire institution. Parastatals have been created by executive order. Why are we pretending now that we want to curtail the powers of the president? But for revetting, I'm 100% about revetting. Let them be revetted.
All right.
There are certain principles, Ben, in the Constitution, in constitutional law, called harmony and paramountcy of the Constitution. And the fact that the president has got the power to appoint or to reassign persons, that reassignment should be predicated on provisions of law, for instance, upon vetting. And I agree with Mark that they're supposed to be vetted. The fact that the president is in office as the executive head, the chief executive of the state, does not mean then that for purposes of executing his mandate, he can expand it beyond an elastic limit outside the brackets of the law. And that's why we are saying that, one, it's problematic that the Attorney General seems not to have sufficiently and properly advised the President. With the conjunctive reading of the same Constitution as Mark purports, it is improper then for us to appreciate to what extent is that appointment aligned to the principle of governance of the rule of law.
All right, we have to end it there. Because of time, it's an interesting conversation. We will see the reaction of the executive, the High Court giving it 30 days to respond to those and other issues. Let's take another quick commercial break here on Inside Politics. Don't go too far. When we come back, we'll be getting into some Jubilee politics and efforts by Jubilee to divorce from UDA and UDA refusal to sign divorce papers. Stay with us.